Today, we're going to talk about something you've probably never thought about, but it's happening right under our feet. We're looking at how tiny little worms are becoming these unexpected heroes for our oceans, and how they're making the fish we eat healthier and the whole system a lot more sustainable.
I know, it sounds a little bit like something out of a comic book, right? But what if I told you the key to a cheaper, healthier, and just plain better future for fish farming is actually wiggling around in the dirt? Let's dig in and see how this all works.
So, before we get to our heroes, we first need to understand the problem they're solving. Fish farming, or aquaculture as it's officially known, is a really, really big deal.
I mean, it's absolutely essential for feeding the whole planet. It gives millions of people the protein they need. But as you can probably guess, as the industry gets bigger, so do its challenges. It's a constant balancing act to keep these underwater farms healthy and productive.
See, to keep the ponds healthy, farmers are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, you have chemical fertilizers. They work, for sure, but they're super expensive and not great for the environment. On the other hand, you've got traditional manure. It's cheap, but it can be inconsistent, bring in diseases, and even suck all the oxygen out of the water. So yeah, neither one is a perfect solution.
So, what's the alternative? This is where our story gets really interesting. This is where our unlikely hero wiggles onto the scene with a solution that nature's been perfecting for millions of years. You know, we see them on the sidewalk after it rains, and we probably don't think much of it. But earthworms? They are absolute titans of the natural world. For more than 600 million years, they've been the planet's master recyclers, just quietly turning garbage into gold. They're nature's original engineers. Okay, so what is this special power they have? What makes them so valuable for a fish pond? Well, it all comes down to one really amazing natural process. It's got a fancy name, vermicomposting. But don't let that fool you. All it really is a tag team between earthworms and trillions of tiny microbes. They work together to take organic waste, like kitchen scraps, and turn it into this incredible, super rich fertilizer. And the process itself is just beautiful in its simplicity. You start with some organic waste. Then you add the worms, a special kind of composting worm that's a really big eater. And then the worms just go to work. They eat and digest all that waste. And what comes out the other side is this dark, rich, earthy fertilizer called vermicompost.
So, we've got this black gold made by worms. That's cool. But how in the world does that help a fish? Well, the connection is actually pretty elegant.
And here's the part that might surprise you. You're not actually feeding this stuff to the fish. Nope. The strategy is way smarter than that. What you're really doing is using the vermicompost to create a perfect all-you-can-eat, all-natural buffet right there in the pond itself.
Just think of it like a set of dominoes. The vermicompost is like a super vitamin for the water that helps these tiny little plants, called phytoplankton, start to bloom. Then, tiny little animals called zooplankton show up to eat all that phytoplankton. And guess what? The fish absolutely love to eat the zooplankton. It's a perfect, natural food chain that leaves you with happy, well-fed fish and even cleaner water. But here's where it goes from being just a cool idea to a total game changer. When you integrate the worms with the fish farm, you create this incredible closed-loop system where literally nothing is wasted. It's a perfect symbiotic relationship. That just means that everybody helps everybody else out. The fish farm makes food for the worms, and the worms make something that helps the fish farm. It's a perfect circle, all powered by nature.
So let's walk through it. It all starts with the waste from the fish pond. You know, uneaten food, fish poop, all that stuff that turns into sludge at the bottom.
But instead of that sludge being a problem that needs to be cleaned up, it becomes a resource. It turns out to be the perfect 5-star meal for our army of earthworms. So then, our little engineers get to work. They eat all that waste, and they transform it into that stable, safe, and super powerful organic fertilizer, our vermicompost. And then, to complete the circle, that vermicompost goes right back into the pond. It supercharges the natural food web, which grows more food for the fish. And the whole cycle begins again. It is a perfectly efficient, waste-free system.
Okay, so that's a really neat cycle. But so what? Why does this really matter in the real world? Well, the benefits of this whole thing are truly game-changing.
Let's just talk about one number, 40%. By creating all of this natural food right inside the pond, farmers can cut what they spend on expensive artificial fish feed by up to 40%. For any farmer, that is a massive, massive saving.
And the benefits just keep stacking up.
It's cheaper for farmers, which is fantastic. It's so much cleaner for the planet because you're recycling waste, not causing pollution. And get this, it's actually healthier for the fish. The vermicompost has stuff in it that boosts their immune systems. By its very nature, it's a completely sustainable solution.
You know, it's amazing. The humble earthworm is teaching us a really powerful lesson here. Sometimes the best, most elegant solutions aren't created in a high-tech lab. They're already here in nature. And it really makes you wonder, right? If these tiny worms can revolutionize something as big as fish farming, what other huge problems could we solve just by listening to the wisdom of the natural world?